Hey students, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to discuss February-March 2025 paper 2, which is the latest paper. So let's start. Question number 1 is, the diagram shows containers of gas at same temperature. All the containers have the same size. Which container contains gases at a highest pressure? Now, the gases which are at highest pressure, if we apply the pressure, the particles of those gases will come together, they come close to each other. So A is the answer in which the particles are closer to each other. So if the particles are close to each other, then they collide more with each other and with the walls of the container. And that's how they will increase the pressure. They will exert more pressure on the container. Number 2, a cooling curve for a substance is shown. Which statement is correct? Now, whenever there is a phase change in a heating curve or a cooling curve, whenever their phase is changing, then the temperature stays constant. Temperature stays the same. So we have to see that thing. So when there is a phase change, temperature stays same. And when the temperature is either decreasing in a cooling curve or if the temperature is increasing in a heating curve, so it means there is some phase or some state of matter, like solid, liquid, or gas when the temperature is changing. Between U and V, the substance is condensing. This is wrong. Between U and V, substance is not condensing because at condensation, temperature stays same. And here, between U and V, temperature is decreasing. Between V and W, heat is being absorbed from the surroundings. This is also wrong because heat is released to the surroundings as it is a cooling curve. Between W and X, the particles are close together and move, and they're randomly arranged. This one is correct because between W and X, the particle is at liquid stage because it has been condensed in V to W, and then in X and Y, it freezes. So between W and X, it is liquid, and the liquid particles are close together and randomly arranged. So C is correct. Number 3, samples of 4 gases at room temperature at the same time. In a room at the same time, the gases in the gases are carbon dioxide. Okay, so which gas diffuse the fastest? Obviously, the gas which is lightest in mass, which has the lightest MR or smallest MR will diffuse the fastest. So carbon dioxide mass is 44. Hydrogen chloride mass is 36.5 and hydrogen sulfide mass is 34. There's nitrogen dioxide also. Nitrogen dioxide mass is 46. So if we compare all these gases, hydrogen sulfide has the lowest mass. So hydrogen sulfide will diffuse the fastest. So the answer is C. Next question, sulfur atoms can form the negative ion sulfide. Okay, how many of these atoms or ions have the same electronic configuration as sulfide ion? So if we see sulfur atomic number is 16. So its electronic configuration is 2, 8, and 6. When it gains 2 electrons, its configuration becomes 2, 8, 8. So the sulfide ion configuration is 2, 8, 8. For argon's atomic mass is 18. Argon's atomic mass is 18, so its configuration is 288, which is the same like sulfide ion. If we see calcium atom, its atomic number is 20. So it will be 2H82, which is not same as sulfide ion. And as for the oxide ion, it is oxide O2 minus. Oxygen atomic number is 8. So its configuration is 2 and 6. So after gaining 2 electrons, it becomes 2 and 8, which is not the same as sulfide ion. So here only one argon has the same configuration like sulfide. So B is the answer, 1. Next question. Element T has 2 isotopes. Which statement about these isotopes is correct? They have different chemical properties. No, the isotopes have same chemical properties because they have same number of outer shell electrons. Electrons are responsible for the chemical properties. This question is very common in paper 2. The isotopes and same chemical properties because they have same outer shell electrons. Next question. Lithium is in group 1 of the periodic table. Nitrogen is in group 5 of the periodic table. Lithium reacts with nitrogen to form the ionic compound lithium nitride. What happens to the electrons when lithium atoms and nitrogen atoms form ions? For the lithium atom, its atomic number is 3 and nitrogen's atomic number is 7. If we see the lithium atom is 2, 1, so it's going to lose that 1 electron and become Li positive. Nitrogen's configuration will be, its configuration is 2, 5, so it gains 3 electron. After gaining 3 electron, nitrogen becomes nitride ion N3 minus. So option A is correct. Each lithium atom loses 1 electron to form lithium positive, and each nitrogen atom gains 3 electrons to become N3 negative. Question number 7. For which covalent compound does the dot and cross diagram correctly show the outer shell electrons? The answer here is C. Because in A and B, they have shown the lone pairs in hydrogen. Hydrogen does not have any lone pair of electron because hydrogen has only 1 electron, which it shares with chlorine. And as for the nitrogen is 7, so its configuration is 2 and 5. Out of 5 electrons, nitrogen will share 3 electrons with 3 hydrogens, and the 2 electrons will be unshared, they will be outside. And these lone electrons are not here in D, so structure D is also not correct. C is correct. It shows the lone pairs of nitrogen. Question number 8. Which row identifies the positive and negative particles present in giant metallic structure? Now, in metals, the positive ions are arranged in the lattice structure, and they have delocalized C of electrons as negative particle. So the answer here is D. Cations, the positive particles are cations, the metal ions, and the negative particles are delocalized electrons. Which formula for the named compound is correct? Calcium oxide. The equation for the reaction of magnesium with sulfuric acid is shown. Which mass of magnesium sulfate is formed when 12 grams of magnesium completely reacts with sulfuric acid? So here they're asking us the mass of magnesium sulfate. So the mass of magnesium sulfate is unknown and the mass of magnesium is given, which is 12 grams. So how to solve it? Whenever we have any equation given, an equation or a chemical reaction given, and also they give us the amount of one substance and we need to find out the amount of another substance. So here we will take ratio between the two substances. So here the ratio will be between the magnesium and magnesium sulfate. So let's take the ratio magnesium and magnesium sulfate. First we will see that what is the ratio between magnesium and magnesium sulfate in the balanced chemical equation. In the balanced equation, we have 1 mole of magnesium whose mass is 24 grams, and we have 1 mole of magnesium sulfate whose mass is 120 grams, given in the question. So, 24 grams of magnesium are giving 120 grams of magnesium sulfate, then 12 grams will give how much? So, we'll use the cross method. 12 multiplied by 120 divided by 24, and the answer comes out to be 60. An organic compound Q contains carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Q contains 40 carbon, 6.7 hydrogen by mass. What is the empirical formula? Empirical formula shows us the simplest whole number ratio between the atoms. Simplest whole number ratio. So how can we find the simplest whole number ratio between carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen? For carbon, it's 40.0 grams given in the question. Hydrogen is 6.7 grams given in the question. Oxygen is not given, so we can find out the oxygen. Total percentage is 100, so we will minus the mass, the total mass of carbon and hydrogen from the mass of, from the total 100% to get the mass of oxygen. So 40 plus 6.7 Then whatever answer we get, we have to minus it from 100 and we get the answer 53.3 grams as oxygen mass. We will divide all of them by their atomic masses, 12, 1, and 16. For carbon, it's 3.33. Hydrogen, 6.7. For oxygen also, it's 3.33. Now to find the simplest whole number ratio, we'll divide all of them by the least number, which is 3.33 here. And we get 1:2:1. So the answer is B, CH2O. The value of Avogadro's constant is 6.02 into 10 power 23. What is the total number of atoms in 2 moles of ammonia? Now we have to see first that in 2 moles of ammonia, how many atoms are there? Because they're asking the total number of atoms. So whatever number of atoms will be present in 2 moles of ammonia will multiply this Avogadro's number by those number of atoms. So if we see, in 1 mole of ammonia, there are 4 atoms. How? Ammonia is NH3. So there is 1 atom of nitrogen and there are 3 atoms of hydrogen. Total make it 4 atoms. So in 1 mole of ammonia, there are 4 atoms. So in 2 mole of ammonia, there will be 4 multiplied by 2, 8 atoms. So there will be 8 atoms. So we'll multiply this Avogadro's constant by 8 and we get the value 4.82 into 10 power 24. Number 13, 3 aqueous solutions L, M, N are electrolyzed using inert electrodes. L is concentrated hydrochloric acid, M is concentrated sulfuric acid, and N is dilute sodium chloride. Which solution produces pale yellow-green gas at the anode? Now, anode is the positive one, and the pale green gas is chlorine. Now, we have to see that which of the solution will give chlorine at the anode. As for the dilute solution, in every dilute solution, we get hydroxide ions going towards the anode and forming oxygen gas. In all the dilute solutions, hydroxide ions will go to the anode. Remember this thing, all the dilute solution. In the concentrated solution, any anion other than hydroxide ion will go to the anode. Here we have, it's a concentrated hydrochloric acid, so we must be having hydroxide ion and chloride ion. Here also concentrated aqueous sodium chloride, we have hydroxide ion and chloride ion. Now in both of them, as they are concentrated, so hydroxide ion will not go at the anode. So any ion other than hydroxide, which is chlorine. So L and M both will form chlorine at anode. So the answer is A. The reaction pathway diagram for the reaction between P and Q. Okay, I have missed some questions. Okay, so we are on question number 14 here. Dilute sulfuric acid is electrolyzed using inert electrodes. What are the ionic half equations for the reactions that take place at each electrode? It's a dilute sulfuric acid, which is really easy because in every dilute solution, as I told you before, hydroxide ions will go at the anode in every dilute solution, whether it is acid or salt. And when we have an acidic solution, then always H positive will go at the cathode when it is acidic solution. So there is no doubt in dilute solution, OH negative, and in acid, for acid, H positive will go to the cathode. So the answer will be C, because at positive electrode, hydroxide ions will go and form oxygen gas. At negative electrode, H positive ions will gain 2 electrons to make hydrogen gas. Question number 15. It's about hydrogen fuel cell. Which statements are correct? They convert chemical energy into electrical energy. That's correct. Hydrogen is reduced. That is not correct because hydrogen is oxidized in the fuel cell. Hydrogen in a fuel cell, the equation is H2 plus O2 gives H2O. This is the equation of hydrogen fuel cell. So hydrogen is being oxidized here, not reduced. They do not produce any atmospheric pollutant. That is correct, because they do not produce any carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, or any other pollutant. Only steam is produced in hydrogen fuel cell, which is used to convert into electrical energy. So the answer is 1 and 3. Number 16. The reaction pathway diagram for the reaction between P and Q to form R and S is shown. Which letter represents the enthalpy change? The enthalpy change is always between the reactants and the products. So between reactants and products, it's C. This is the reactant line. PQ is the reactant line. R and S is the product line. So between R and P, between reactants and products, is the delta H, enthalpy change. And this one is EA in case if it comes. Then between the reactants and the peak of the mountain, between peak of the activation energy, it's the activation energy, which is always going to be endothermic. Question 17, we have to calculate the enthalpy change for this reaction. In CH4, we'll write here for the reactants, and here we'll write for the products. For the reactants, it's CH4. We will make it like this, CH4, 4 hydrogen. The number of bonds are 4. So we have 4 CH bonds. Plus, there are 2 O double bond O bonds. And as for the product, for carbon dioxide, the structure is like this. Carbon in the middle, then 2 double bonds. So there are 2 C double bond O bonds. Plus, for 2 molecules of H2O, in one H2O, there are 2 OH bonds. Then in 2 H2O, there will be 4 OH bonds. Because we know the water structure is this. This is the water structure. So in one molecule, there are 2 OH bonds. So in 2 water molecules, there will be 4. So we'll write 4 OH here. Substitute the values. 4 CH410, 2 O double bond O 496, 2 C double bond O 805 plus 4 OH 460. If we solve all of them, the delta and find out the delta H, R minus P, so we get the answer P minus 181. So that's the answer. Which change is a physical change? Very easy. Evaporating ethanol. Evaporation is a physical change in which no new substance is formed. Which statement explains why an increasing temperature involving gases increasing the rate of reaction? So increase in temperature. Whenever temperature comes, we have to consider the kinetic energy. Increasing the temperature increases the kinetic energy. Statement 3 is correct. It lowers the activation energy. This is wrong because activation energy is only affected by a catalyst. It increases the collision frequency. Yes, because particles will gain energy and they will collide more. They start moving faster and their collision will increase. The answer is 1 and 3. Increases the number of particles. That is not correct, because increasing the temperature, it does not increase the number of particles. Number 20, the equation reaction between ammonia and oxygen is shown. Which two changes in the reaction will both move the position of equilibrium towards right? So we need to move the equilibrium towards right, means towards the forward side, towards products. As we can see, the delta H is negative, so the right side is exothermic. So if we decrease the temperature, system will move towards exothermic side. And as for the products, as for the pressure, we will see the number of moles. 4 plus 5, the number of moles on the reactant side are 9. And 4 plus 6, the number of moles on the product side are 10. So on the product side, there are more number of moles. So we will decrease the pressure so that system will move towards the more mole side, because always system will do the opposite. If we decrease the pressure, System will move towards the side where are more number of moles. And if we decrease the pressure, system will move towards the side which is exothermic. So the answer here is D. Mercury oxide decomposes when heated. There's a reaction, 2AgO gives 2Ag plus O2. Why is this a reduction reaction? This is a reduction reaction because there is a loss of oxygen happening. That's why it is reduction. Some information about two dilute acids is shown, nitric acid and propanoic acid. So there are two acids, nitric acid, you can see 0.1 concentration, but the pH is 1. Propanoic acid, 0.4 concentration, and the pH is 2.6. Which statement about acids are correct? These statements are okay. Nitric acid has the lower pH because it dissociates more than propanoic acid. Yeah, the lower pH one, the one which has a low pH, it means it's a strong acid and it dissociates completely. So it dissociates more than propanoic acid. Propanoic acid has a lower concentration of hydrogen ions than nitric acid. It has a lower concentration of hydrogen ions than nitric acid. Yes, because it dissociates partially, so its concentration will be low. Propanoic acid has a higher pH because it has higher concentration. This is no, it has the higher pH. Yes, it's true, but not because it has higher concentration of H positive, because it has low concentration of H positive. That's why. So the answer is 1 and 3. Sorry, 1 and 2. The answer is 1 and 2. I corrected wrong. It will be A, 1 and 2. Element E is a metal in group 1 and element G is a metal in group 7. Both of these elements form oxides. Okay, so a metal always forms basic oxide or amphoteric oxide, and the non-metal always forms acidic oxide or neutral oxide. So element oxide of G is acidic and oxide of E is basic. D. Lead sulfate is an insoluble salt. Which method is suitable for obtaining pure solid lead sulfate? We want to obtain lead sulfate, which is PbSO4, is an insoluble salt. It's a precipitate. How we can get it? If we have a salt of lead, a soluble salt of lead, and we add it in any salt or any solution which contains sulfate, so an insoluble salt will be formed. Then we can filter it, wash, and dry. So here the answer will be C, because we have lead. If we take lead nitrate, and we add it in sulfuric acid, then lead sulfate will be formed. Lead sulfate plus water will be formed, HNO3. Lead sulfate plus HNO3 will be formed, nitric acid. So lead sulfate will be insoluble solid and nitric acid will be aqueous. So what we'll do, we'll filter this mixture. For the third one. We'll filter it, then we'll wash and dry the residue. So this one is correct. Whatever is left on the filter paper, that is our lead sulfate, the insoluble salt, and we can filter it out. A also seems correct, A or D, because here we are using two soluble salts to prepare an insoluble salt. But here in B, they are saying collect the filtrate, which is wrong. And in A, they are saying that to collect it, we will heat to evaporate all the water, then collect the solid. So this is wrong. We'll not heat it. We'll simple filter. We'll get the insoluble salt on the filter paper. We'll wash and dry. Simple. The answer is C. The element oxygen and sulfur are in the same group of the periodic table. Which statement about oxygen and sulfur is not correct? Both are non-metals. Both have 6 electrons in the outer shell because they're in the same group, 6 group. They react together to form an acidic oxide. Yes, oxygen and sulfur will combine to form sulfur dioxide, which is acidic. They have giant covalent structures. This one is wrong because giant covalent structures are of carbon, which is diamond and graphite, and they are of silicon, which is silicon oxide. Tennessine is at the bottom of the group 7 of the periodic table. What are the predicted properties of tennessine at room temperature? So tennessine is at the bottom of the group 7. So we have fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and acetine and tennessine. So for fluorine and chlorine are gases. Bromine is a liquid. Iodine and acetine are solid, which makes tennessine also solid because, as you can see, there is a trend uh, in physical states. So it's a solid, but it's more denser than iodine, or it is denser than iodine, or more reactive than iodine. As we go down in the halogens, the reactivity decreases. So which makes tennessine less reactive than iodine. So this one is wrong. This one is correct because it is more dense than iodine. It will be heavier than iodine. An example of the sacrificial protection is the fitting of zinc blocks to the outside of ship's steel hull. Which statement explain why zinc is used to protect iron in the steel from rusting? Zinc is more reactive than iron, so it loses electrons more easily. This one is correct because the metal which is more reactive, it is easier for that substance to lose the electron. And that's how it protects the iron, because it reacts, it loses electron, but it protects the iron inside. It won't let iron to lose its electrons. Which statement about alloys is correct? Alloys are harder than pure metal because they contain strong intermolecular forces. Brass is an alloy containing copper and tin. No, copper and zinc are present. The different sized atoms in an alloy mean that the layers cannot easily slide over each other. This one is correct. That's how we make alloys more stronger, because different sized atoms are present. Separate pieces of aluminum foil and copper foil are heated in the air. Copper foil reacts to give black solid. The aluminum foil does not react. Which statement explains these observations? This one is correct, that aluminum has an unreactive layer, oxide layer. Aluminum forms an unreactive oxide layer around it, which protects it from further reaction, which hides its reactivity. So that's why aluminum does not show any reaction. Do not show. Which row gives the symbol equation for the formation of carbon monoxide and the reduction of iron oxide in the blast furnace? In the blast furnace, carbon monoxide is formed by carbon dioxide. First, we have carbon reacting with oxygen to form carbon dioxide in the blast furnace. Then this carbon dioxide further get reduced by carbon to form carbon monoxide. So this is the reaction for the formation of carbon monoxide. So the answer would be from B or D. And for the reduction of iron oxide, this D is true because iron oxide, which is present in hematite, is Fe2O3, which gets reduced by carbon monoxide to form iron and carbon dioxide. So D is correct. A sample of river water contains high concentration of nitrates for fertilizers. Which statements about the river water are correct? The river water has amount of nitrates, and nitrates act as impurities in the water. And because of the impurities, the melting point decreases. Because of the impurities. The melting point is below 0. This is correct. And it turns anhydrous copper sulfate from white to blue. This is a test for water. It turns anhydrous cobalt chloride paper from, this is wrong because it turns cobalt chloride paper from blue to pink, not from pink to blue. So 2 and 4. Which statement about the treatment of domestic water supplies is correct? This statement is correct. The water is chlorinated to decrease the pH. No, they are chlorinated to kill microorganisms. The water is treated with carbon to improve the taste. This is correct because there are certain dissolved chemicals in the water which are responsible for odd odor and taste. So we use carbon slurry to remove these chemicals. We use carbon, which absorb all these chemicals. The water is filtered to remove insoluble solids. This one is correct. So the answer is 2 and 3. This is not correct because sedimentation is used to remove undissolved solids. An experiment to find the percentage of oxygen in 150 centimeter cube of polluted air is shown. The apparatus is left for 1 week. After this time, the volume of the gas in the measuring cylinder is 122. What is the percentage of oxygen to the nearest whole number in the polluted air? To solve this question, we'll take the initial value, which is 150. Then we use the final value, which is 122. So we will measure the amount of the oxygen by taking 150 minus 122. We'll find the amount of the oxygen and how many total are present. 150 is the total amount. So we'll do 150 minus 122 divided by 150 multiplied by 100 to take the percentage. And the answer is 19%. Fine. This is the initial one minus the final divided by total. So that's how you will get the answer. This much percentage of oxygen is present in the polluted air. 34, nitrogen monoxide and carbon monoxide are both removed from the exhaust gases by the catalytic converter. Which statement describes how nitrogen monoxide and carbon monoxide are removed from the catalytic converter? Now, if you remember the equation of the catalytic converter, in the car engine, because of high temperature, we get nitrogen monoxide, and because of incomplete combustion, we get carbon monoxide. Both of these gases are very, very harmful. They are very toxic. They move to the catalytic converter, where the nitrogen monoxide gets reduced and it gives its oxygen to carbon monoxide, forming carbon dioxide. And the nitrogen monoxide gets reduced to nitrogen molecule. So D is correct. The nitrogen monoxide is reduced and carbon monoxide is oxidized. 35, propane 1-ol is oxidized by acidified potassium manganate. Which compound is produced by the oxidation of propanol with acidified aqueous potassium manganate? So oxidation of propanol will produce propanoic acid by the oxidation by KMnO4. So propanoic acid formula is this CH3CH2COOH. This propanoic acid is formed by propanol. The structural formula of methyl propane is this CH3CH, and this is probably a branch, CH3, methyl branch, CH3. The equation represents the reaction of methyl propane with chlorine, C4H10 plus chlorine. Okay, this is a substitution reaction. The chlorine displaces one of the hydrogen and forms C4H9Cl, and hydrogen chloride gas is formed as a byproduct. How many structural isomers can be formed? Now, structural isomers can be only 2 because C4H9Cl2, this is chlorobutane. So it will be like this, butane C4. And in one of the isomer, we attach chlorine on the first carbon. On the first carbon. And in the second isomer, we can attach the chlorine on the second carbon, which makes the second isomer 2-chlorobutane. So 2 isomers are possible. Which statement describe advantages of manufacturing ethanol by fermentation? So fermentation, it uses a renewable resource, and the disadvantage. Okay, so they're asking about disadvantage. It produces impure ethanol and this process is slow. These are the 2 disadvantages. Renewable resource, it is the advantage of doing fermentation, manufacturing ethanol by fermentation. And we don't use high temperature in fermentation. We use low temperature or normal room temperature for fermentation. Nylon is made by polymerization reaction. Which row describes the type of polymerization and identifies the other product? So obviously nylon is a condensation polymer formed by condensation and the byproduct is water. Because in every condensation reaction, water is removed as a byproduct. Number 39, which ion forms a green precipitate with sodium hydroxide that dissolves in aqueous sodium hydroxide? So for this is written in the data sheet, which is also your chapter 22. So previously you don't used to learn chapter 22, but now you have to learn the test for the ions. This is the test for the cations. Whenever we have sodium hydroxide written and a colored PPT, mostly colored PPT and sodium hydroxide, when we add sodium hydroxide dropwise and then in excess, this is a test for any cation, positive ion. And for the green PPT, it can be chromium 3+, it can be iron 2+, but the PPT that dissolves in aqueous sodium hydroxide are chromium, because Fe2+ ions, they also form green PPT with sodium hydroxide, but they do not dissolve. They remain insoluble. So the soluble ones are of chromium, chromium 3+. Then we have the last question. A mixture of soluble substances can be separated by paper chromatography. Which substance can be identified using its RF value? Which is the formula of RF value? RF value formula, obviously RF value, we all know that RF value is the division, it's the ratio. You can say it's a divide or it's a ratio between two distances. Distance traveled by the substance divided by distance traveled by the solvent. The answer is B. So hope you have liked this video and you have understood all the questions which are present in this paper of February-March 2025. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.